Welcome back to Millennium Workshop. You really liked the Cad Bane helmet build, so now we're going to make his hat. Let's get into this. Alright, everyone's favorite part, watching our 3D print grow. Now on this build I used my H2S to print the brim of the hat. I cut it in half and I was able to print both sides at once. That is one of the great things about the H2S is you can just print much bigger things. That's why I'm really glad I have it in my arsenal. While that was printing, I was printing the armor for the sides of it, and I did that on my P1S. Now it is time to get these glued together. I'm going to go in and do a lot of welding on this to get it as smooth as possible, so you don't have to like over cake your glue. Definitely recommend using a activator for your glue. It just makes everything go a little bit faster. But if it's not perfectly even or anything like that, that can always be fixed while melting and soldering. Now for some reason you can see that it was not like going together on the outer part of the brim, so I'm just gonna melt a bunch of PLA into it and do a lot of smoothing prior to painting. I think it'll be a lot easier than just going back and reprinting or trying to figure out why it did that. When you solder with PLA, I mean, it's kind of like, it can be like sculpting. You just kind of keep filling that hole up and just keep smoothing it with a soldering iron. I did the bottom half first and then I filled it with glue, kind of wiped it away. I used my spray activator and harden it, and then I'm going to go back over it and melt some plastic into it. So this is going to be extremely strong and super durable now. Fabric by hat. How am I going to do this? FLOCKIT. FLOCKIT. Now before we get into flocking, I'm going to spray this with a texture. I chose to go with truck bed liner. The reason why is I just want this to look as close to real as possible, and I wasn't sure if there was any extra layer lines showing or anything like that, if the flocking would cover it up. I've never used flocking, so we're gonna figure it out. Now once that dries, I went in with a flat earth brown spray paint because the flocking adhesive that I'm using is clear, and just in case for some reason I don't get adequate coverage or anything like that, I want a base coat of similar color underneath the flocking. We're about to do the flocking, but if you wanted to just stop here with the truck bed liner, this looks really good. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think this is a nice, like, happy medium of looking like leather, but like a boiled wool. The flocking is definitely going to take it to a different level, which I have never done flocking before. So this is something new and I'm really excited about. But what I did was I hot glued it into the hat, this stand, so I can flock the bottom and then flock the top, because it's going to take about 72 hours to dry. We do not want to touch it. You do not want to touch it. The guy at Woodcraft, where I bought the flocking, told me do not touch it for 48 hours to 72. So we're just going to go 3 days and not touch it. So let's do this. All right, so right off the bat, went the FLOCKIT suede texture. Here is the clear glue. This is your flocking pump, and then your pulverized suede. I went with a brown. I was trying to get as dark of a brown as possible, but their standard brown looked dark enough in my opinion. So what we're going to do is you're going to fill your flocking tube, and when you pump this, it kind of just spits it out at your subject and onto the glue. Now Carl at Woodcraft, he was the one helping me out, explaining flocking to me. He said to make sure to stir the glue really well before using it. And he said put on a nice generous coat. Now at the end of the day, I really don't mind if all of it gets covered or not, or if it's a little blotchy or anything like that, because I feel like with the texture from the truck bed liner and potentially any blotching that could happen or anything like that, it could just make it look more worn and older. I don't think battle damage on a Star Wars hat, for especially Cad Bane, is going to look bad. Now, I know some spots that looked like it didn't adhere to, so I put a little bit more glue before I moved to the top. Now I'm kind of just doing this in sections and hoping it works, but I was really happy with how the overall look of it, the feel of it is just wild. If you're not sure what flocking is like inside of a jewelry box, that suede finish that's inside a jewelry box, so that helps you understand it better. But it's gonna give you that like boiled wool leather look, Indiana Jones hat almost going on right here. Right now, while that is drying, I was out of my U-Pole filler and sandal primer, so I decided to go with some Duplicolor. I'm gonna get the side panels as smooth as I can before we paint them up and dirty them up. But it's always better to get them as smooth as possible first, even if they're gonna be beat up and kind of gross looking. 600 grit sandpaper is usually what I recommend when you are sanding filler sandable primer. I feel like you do less coats when you do it that route. After that's fully dry, I went with a flat black primer before I go with my metal tone. Now I was really not sure how I wanted to go about making the metal on the side. I was looking at, Duplicolor chromes and Rust-Oleum aluminum, but I settled on Gunmetal Gray by Rust-Oleum metallic. It's the same color I used for the breather tube, and I just think it looks really good once you start weathering it and shining it up. Now once that's dry, I'm going in with Rub and Buff, a silver. It's really going to brighten it up, but also that gunmetal gray, it kind of gives it that dirty vibe without having to go in and weather it. So that is really why I like doing these colors together. I don't know why. It is just really nice. And then I'm going in and using a black rub and buff and getting into the deep crevices to still have that metal look. Now, when it comes to the crevices and the outlining around the rest of this piece, I decided to go with a Vallejo black airbrush paint and wipe it off because I wanted it to be a little bit more vibrant than the ebony rub and buff. Alright, so now it is time to glue our armor plates onto the side of the helmet. I'm just using hot glue. I thought it was going to be the easiest, and it was. It turned out perfect. I mean, they're on there forever now. But if you wanted to replace them or take them off, you could get them off if you wanted to, and it's not going to damage it. Now, I found an old leather belt that I cut long ways to get it to the right thickness that I was looking for, and I'm just hot gluing this on as well. Now, I did scratch at a few spots and pull some of the flocking off just so that I could, dirty this up. I am just using a very watered down black airbrush paint by Vallejo. I thought this would really just kind of give it some stains and darken it up just a little bit more. But like if any of the flocking comes off a little bit, I think it really looks good because you do have that truck bed liner underneath. So drop down in the comments if you like how this looks. Alright, if you made it through that entire video, now you know how to make yourself an awesome Cad Bane hat. I think we did pretty good on this one. Drop down in the comments your favorite part about this build and what you'd like to see next. Thank you, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.